welcome to this edition of India Inc. 2.0. I'm Nayanthara Rai. Today I have two very special guests, Akhil Sibal as well as Vedant Varma. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us here on ET Now on this edition of India Inc. 2.0. You both are lawyers. I understand both of you are friends as well. Akhil, I'm going to come to you first. You're the senior counsel. Incidentally, he's also Mr. Kapil Sibal's son. How did you get into law? Was it always understood that you were going to be a lawyer?
No, in fact, like it often happens, if you're born into a family and as you grow up, you're exposed to one thing constantly, at times you tend to develop an aversion to it.
You're a rebel?
As did I, yes. I don't know if I ever reached the rebel stage, but yes, I was not very keen on it. I wanted to do something different, something original. Every dinner table conversation was law or politics, and there are a number of lawyers in the family. And so when I went to college, I had no intention of going into law. I did philosophy and political science as my first degree. Tried my hand at economics, wasn't very good at it, so abandoned the thought. Really enjoyed philosophy in particular. And when I graduated, I said to myself, well, what do I do next? I know what one thing that I love, which is philosophy, and how do I apply that? And it was either academia, or then the next logical step seemed to be law. Because that was, in a sense, a practical application of the kind of rigor and deductive thinking that you are trained in.
So do you bring philosophy to law?
Well, law has a lot of philosophy embedded in it.
Vedant, I'll come to you now. So did you know that you were going to be a lawyer, or did you think of like your father, Mr. Pavan Varma, that maybe you'll be a diplomat or you'll join the IFS?
By the way, my mother was in the Indian Foreign Service.
Oh, she was in the Foreign
Service. So that was a possibility also, and I was dead against that. I never wanted that.
So that was another common thread between you two.
Absolutely, but I never ever wanted to join the civil services. I was very clear on that from day one. And when I graduated school, for a moment I wanted to study history at St. Stephen's, but I came across a course in law and business, which was exactly one of the two paths which I wanted to take. It could be either law or business. So I did that course. I went to England, and then I came back to Delhi. Once I decided that I wanted to be a lawyer, I studied only business courses in England. I came back, I joined the Faculty of Law over here, where I dabbled in a bit of student politics, and I worked every single day.
So he's already joined the Congress party. Do you have any ambitions?
Never say never, but as of now, I'm not thinking about it. I feel like I have a lot more that I want to do in the law, a lot more to achieve, and it's pretty all-consuming. So I don't have too much time to think about other things. I'm not as good as my father at multitasking. So for the time being, it's law only for me.
So how relieved was your father when you finally told him, okay, I am going to be a lawyer? Was he relieved, or?
He's never been controlling. He's never imposed any sort of anything on me. He let me find my own way.
But did you start off with him when you started working?
Well, actually, I started off on my own, which was something which I feel in hindsight at the time.
Isn't that always done later? Like first you join a senior or a law firm?
You're right. I started off on day one on my own, and my father encouraged me to do that. I was a bit unsure of it a few months in, when my peers were running around in court following seniors. They had a number of cases to pursue every day. They seemed far busier than me. I had one case every few weeks.
Which was your first case?
I can't remember.
Really?
Yeah, I can't remember. I think it had to do with a bank, some bank loan. But I do remember one of the first few cases where I got a brief from a law firm, and the person who was assisting me said that this matter has been pending for a couple of years, and it's likely to go on pending for a number of further years. So we just sort of want you to be there, do your best. If you can do something to speed it up, that will be great. But if not,
Gosh, that's
we know
how
the fate
lawyers
of it.
brief lawyers. There's going to be no verdict right now. So can you just appear, basically?
So because
see what happened then after that.
Yeah. So because I was so idle and I had very few matters, I decided, took it up as a challenge, and I went to the particular courtroom where the matter was listed. and when the matter was listed, I would sit in the second row from the morning, and I had only that one matter, and I would keep looking at the judge. Now, this happened on a couple of occasions, and the third or fourth time that it happened after adjournments for 2, 4, 6 months, the judge, the other side sought another adjournment. The judge said, no, this lawyer every time comes, sits all day, I'm not going to adjourn it, I'm rising for the day, I'm going back to my chamber. When your senior is available, please call her to argue. I'll come back and I will hear it after court hours, which she did, and I succeeded.
After court hours?
After court hours at 5 o'clock, and I succeeded in the
The
matter.
Delhi High Court?
Delhi High Court.
Did that act as a source of inspiration for you?
Absolutely. Akhil has been very inspiring in many ways. Ever since I first joined the profession, I joined Ryan and Manik Karanjawala and their firm, and I got to work with him a lot then, and I learnt a lot from him, and he gave me a lot of good advice. And perhaps because of that,
What's the best advice he ever gave you?
to be logical.
Would you think you made your mark?
I don't know if I've made my mark, but I'd like to think that I've achieved a little bit of what I wanted
But don't
to.
be so modest.
No, it's not about being modest. It's a lot to do with luck as well. You know, sometimes it's just about being
The
in the right
paternity
place.
suit was big.
It was huge for me at that point. I was 27. It was almost my first case. My first case, I do remember, was given to me by your principal from Vasant Valley, Mr. Arun Kapoor. And I still thank him till this date for that. But the paternity case, I happened to be sitting in the High Court one day on a particular seat. And my client, Rohit Shekhar, was sitting on the seat next to me. And I had met him some years ago somewhere, and he said, hi Vedant. I said, hi Rohit, what are you doing here? He told me what he's here for.
Tell our viewers about it.
I actually spoke to him then, and there was a difficulty. Now, the way the law in India was that if a child was born during the subsistence of a valid marriage, it was presumed, it was conclusive proof that that child was the legitimate child of the mother and father who were married to each other. So there was no question of any DNA testing. Now, this law was written many, many centuries ago, and it was pretty much the same in all of the Commonwealth. So it needed to be out of the books. So I spoke to him on a way to get that done. And he was kind enough to come
And
in.
it involved very famous people.
It did, of
A
course.
very
it
famous
did.
politician.
And it was actually a good family saga because there was a son, a mother, a very famous, prominent father. There
You
was
can name him.
Mr. N.D. Tiwari. And it was a very public fight, a very bitter fight, and a fight, the first of its kind in the country, and where a child went to court saying that, no, this man is not my father, and this man is, at the cost of being stigmatized socially as well. So after that drama finished, he was declared, there was a reunion, and then there was a marriage. After all those years, he married Rohit Shekhar's mother, and they continue to be married till this date.
But I have a question for you, Vedant. To what extent do you tend to get sort of involved with the client in such matters? And do you consciously try to maintain a sort of distance? Are you able to follow that line, or does it become blurred?
So, you know, initially, when you start out, you have to also be an agony aunt. And I think that sometimes I'm better than Akhil at that.
Would you agree?
Akhil is a great agony aunt.
My belief in the case is driven by that connection that I make with the human being.
No, but if you didn't believe in the client, would you not take up the client?
I always believe in the client. I'll tell you why. Because I understand, I philosophically, intellectually believe that professionally, it's not my place to be the judge. I always believe that I can't have all the variables to judge. Therefore, you will always, if you have that approach, you will always find a side that your client has which you can be convinced by and which you can put forward in court. So it comes to me naturally.
I don't know if you're speaking as a lawyer or a politician, right?
I'm speaking as the person that I am.
You've never been tempted?
No, in fact, my wife, some of the cases that I've done over time have involved bomb blast accused, people languishing in jail accused of heinous crimes. The case that I'm doing is for a person convicted of murder, sentenced to death, who was on death row for 18 years and whose sentence was commuted to life by the president, but without allowing for any remission, which means that the person has no opportunity ever to leave the prison. Now, while he's been in jail, he's got 3 degrees, he's educated himself. You kill any hope of reform. Now, these are kinds of matters I take up pro bono.
So how did you decide to take this up, like a bomb blast accused,
Some lawyer comes, asks for your help, has heard that you perhaps are a lawyer who's amenable, to doing matters for free for impecunious clients. And I think that and Vedant and I share this, that, and often I trouble him for help where, clients are not in a position to pay.
I think that sometimes it's about doing the right thing. And in fact, the same judge who gave him that order once gave me an order on the basis of I need to do the right thing. Justice Reva Khetrapal, she said this. I don't know how I can do this legally, but it seems to be the right thing, and she passed an order. So for us as well, there are all kinds of people. There are so many people going through so much.
And when you
litigations are very, very heavy on the pocket. I've often told many of my friends that I would wish my worst enemy a civil litigation.
I think at the end of the day, anything you do in this country is about a choice. You can, and understandably so, and I sympathize with it and I empathize, you can say, look, the system is going to beat me down. I can't fight it.
That's the thing, the system always wins, right?
It's frustrating. And you can, it can be disheartening and you can be dejected by it. Or you can make an active choice, not be naive about it, recognize that's the way it's going to be. All good lawyers understand and appreciate that you may along the way make potloads of money, which is great, and it's not that, we don't enjoy that part. But the real satisfaction comes from the gratitude of that client, whether rich or poor, who comes back to you 10, 15, 20 years every year to give you a Diwali gift, will come personally and say, I can never forget what you did for me. You sleep at night and you feel great. Everything else doesn't matter.
But tell me something, you guys are talking about pro bono, you're talking about taking cases with so much gratitude. But you guys also have another fantastic thing on your side, which is age. And besides age, both of you, simply because of where you come from and now you're very successful, also have access. Let's not deny it. Do you ever use both of these weapons to your advantage to maybe try and improve the system, to try and reduce litigation time? Have you ever brainstormed with any of the cabinet ministers about this or any of the senior judges about this? Because like you said, it's a frustrating exercise and it must be addressed.
I can't say that I've brainstormed with cabinet ministers about it, but sure, in the interactions that you have.
You never brainstormed about it with your father?
Yeah, with him. With him,
he was a cabinet minister?
As a father, and more as a lawyer. But yes, you do with, senior colleagues, with judges, when you interact with them, you try to, or at fora, that you may be invited to conferences, you publicly speak your mind.
Because everybody publicly says that we need to cut litigation, we need to, justice delayed is justice denied, but we're not really seeing a lot change on ground.
I can tell you that in the span of my career so far, when I started out, there was no prospect of anything being heard, say in the Delhi High Court, for example. Even interim applications, things which didn't decide the matter finally, but decided some issues of moment at that time. Those took a really long time to get heard. Every adjournment was a minimum of 6 months. And that scenario in the last decade or so has changed very substantially.
Okay.
And you have trials which conclude, in 3 years, in 2 years, come up for final hearing in 5 years. And we were facing a scenario of 15, 20 years. And things in the interim get heard. So I can tell you that I have seen the results. Yes, the problem is that you see that backlog keeps mounting.
Yeah.
But the
vacancies.
Vacancies.
And the vacancies.
But the 2G case, for example, it should have taken 100 years and still not have been anywhere near being complete. But they've had a daily trial over there. They finished it off in 7 years. And of course, they were all acquitted in that. And I met you there, I remember, waiting outside for the verdict, and we had
your client, Mr. Siddharth Mayura, was acquitted.
He was acquitted, and the 7 years wait was good. I mean, he can sleep at night now.
But don't you think it's also time, and you look at Mr. Siddharth Behura, or you look at any case where when somebody walks after 7 years, 10 years, 15 years, isn't it time that we have class action suits? Isn't it fair for the person, and I'm not passing any judgment on the 2G case, but any one person who has spent time in prison, many years, has only had to deal with in their life, not deserve justice?
So one of my clients, Muhammad Amir, who was at age 20, 19 cases were filed against him. He was acquitted in 17. In 2 he was convicted. The appeals are pending in the High Court. In the meantime, the sentences in those 2 he had already undergone. 14 years, including solitary, right, he spent in jail. So he'd lost his youth in the meantime. His father had passed away, and he was acquitted in most of them. And I'm defending him in the High Court now. How do you compensate him for that? The National Human Rights Commission has awarded him 5 lakhs. So you're absolutely right. I think that is a major issue.
Okay, so hold that thought. We're going to take a short commercial break, but stay tuned. You're watching India Inc. 2.0. Welcome back. You're watching India Inc. 2.0. I'm Nayanthara Rai. All of us outside, we're reading a lot about judicial activism, the 4 rebel judges. What was it like being part of the legal fraternity at that time? What did you, both of you, think that January morning for that unprecedented press conference?
Well, I thought that I'm living through history in the making.
What did you think?
Exactly the same thought. Like you said, it was unprecedented. And I don't know if that press conference actually achieved what it sought to achieve, but it was definitely unprecedented.
Isn't it time that we did away with summer holidays?
Not at all.
I know you'll want
Not
it.
at all.
It's a colonial hangover. It was when they would go back to England.
Well, if you're talking
one
of
second, let me
colonial
finish.
hangovers.
I know you don't want to hear it. They're supposed to go. They were going back in the summer break to England, to the United Kingdom. The summer holidays are not used to write judgments. It's used for holiday.
No, to write judgments.
I know you don't want the holidays to go, but that's a different matter altogether. Isn't it time and irrelevant in today's day and age?
Well, the first thing that's irrelevant is why we wear gowns and why we wear these funny bands. That is a colonial hangover, if you ask me, especially when it's 50 degrees outside. You're wearing a black suit, you're wearing a gown over that. I think that needs to go.
Not appropriate at all.
That's the first thing that needs to go. And given the fact that we would ordinarily have to wear a black suit in 50 degrees heat, I think we deserve that holiday.
What about television?
By the way, courts are open in the summer.
Yes,
only for emergency hearings? Only for emergency
there
hearings.
is some access.
Only for emergency hearings. So by the way, what about, where do you guys stand when it comes to televising hearings?
Anything which adds transparency to the system is welcome, according to me.
Yeah, I'm of the same view. I think that that alone would be a singular measure, A, towards transparency, and B, towards accountability. Because there are a lot of things that happen in court, right, even though it's a public hearing, which is not accessible to the public at large, and a lot of those things shouldn't be happening. Things that are said, matters that are adjourned casually, for instance, and once there's a spotlight, I think there would be greater accountability. This is one that I've long believed, that at least have things transcribed. A lot of our litigation is spent filing applications about what did or did not happen on the previous hearing.
Absolutely.
And was or was not argued,
should be on record.
and was or was not conceded, which didn't find its way into the order. So therefore, A, it would reduce that. The counter argument is that it has a chilling effect. There is a certain conversation that happens between the judge and the lawyer, where the judge, if he is unsure about something, speaks his mind, or the lawyer gets an indicator that, look, this is the area that is troubling the judge, you persuade on that basis. A judge may hesitate to have that free and frank conversation because there's a camera in his face.
Yeah, that won't happen.
Right?
Then,
so therefore, he may keep his thoughts to himself, not have that conversation with the lawyer, which is bad for the lawyer as well. And it is bad at some level because the case suffers because of that lack of conversation. So there is a price, but according to me, we can afford this cost because the benefits are much greater.
We're going to take a short commercial break, but stay tuned. You're watching India Inc. 2.0. Welcome back. You're watching India Inc. 2.0. I'm Nayanthara Rai. What would you say has been your biggest win and your biggest loss? I want both of you to answer this one.
When I appeared for MF Hussain, and there was, ultimately a judgment in his favor by the Delhi High Court, which became a celebrated judgment, and in 2008. And I spent 24 days out of the next 30 in court, where this matter was heard a little bit every day, at the end of the board, and ultimately, we got a fantastic judgment. So that, is a win that I remember.
You cherish.
And I cherish. As far as a loss, there was a Nigerian lady, Helen Anyanwu, and she was living with her husband and actually pursuing law in a village in Goa, when she left her children in the care of a neighbor while she traveled with her husband out of Goa, and the elder girl, who was 6, was raped by the neighbor's son. She filed a case, the police refused to register, the village turned against them, their house was burnt, etc., etc. I'm sure there was a lot of racism involved, but she was a lady who was going to fight, the issue, and she was determined, and ultimately, the case proceeded, and there was a conviction. And in the meantime, the boy had some political connections, and she was, the family got a leave India notice. They weren't citizens. And I remember court number 1, Delhi High Court, I argued my heart out, and the bench was very dismissive, and they said, look, she's not a citizen, we can't look into this, our scrutiny legally is very limited, we have to go by what the government does, and the case was dismissed. And I came out of court and I was shaken up. This lady was crying, and she hugged me. And she said, look, I'm not crying because I lost. She said, I'm crying because I've been from pillar to post, and nobody has ever fought for me like that.
So in terms of a win, the most memorable one probably, apart from the ND Tiwari cases, the Delhi school admissions case, which funnily enough now happens on a yearly basis, but ever since the Aam Aadmi Party government won in Delhi, it's been sort of a political agenda to politicize school and nursery education and fees as well. And perhaps that was the biggest win. In terms of losses, now you tend to remember your wins much more. But the losses, I don't think they've been very significant. But the biggest takeaway...
You can always appeal anyway.
You can always appeal, and the appeal takes its own time. But
yeah,
the losses haven't been really significant. I've been lucky that way. I've been very lucky.
Now, Vedant, I would imagine maybe you have a different career path than Akhil. You said you dabbled in politics when you were studying law.
Yes.
You've already joined the Congress
I've joined
party.
the Congress.
How did that go down at home, incidentally? You didn't join the political party that your father's affiliated with.
Ideologically, I am more in sync with the Congress. In fact, I am completely in sync with the Congress and completely out of sync with the policies of the other national party, which is the BJP.
Is that what you want to be, a full-time politician as you grow older?
I think that the role model really for me is Akhil's father.
By the way, he was a key member of the campaigning
team okay.
for my
for 2014?
father. So yeah.
So I intend to contest elections if I'm lucky
in
enough.
2019 or?
I can't say whether it will be 2019 or not, but if I'm lucky enough to be given a ticket, an opportunity, I won't let it go. I will do that, and I'll do it full time if I have to.
Okay.
I want to serve the city. I want to serve this country.
You're still keeping it closed right now.
Yeah, I want to make some more money for some more time.
Okay. And with that, gentlemen, I'd like to thank both of you for joining us here on India
Thank you so much,
2.0.
Nayantara.
Thank you.